Hi, this is Mike with OPST. We're going to talk about versatility of rods. Today we have the 10-foot 4-weight out. I have 2 of them rigged up and an extra reel in case we get into more technical dry fly fishing. This is kind of the same setup whether you're fishing cutthroat or trout in the rivers or steelhead fishing. It's, I have one set up with a floating tip with a skater and one set up with a sing tip to follow it up. Whether it's steelheading in the summertime or cutthroat, it's always fun to go in and skate a hole first. Get the most aggressive fish, something on the surface, and then after you've run through that hole, throw your sing tip on, go get the fish that are looking down and not looking up. And steelhead, the same setup, same scenario. You're looking for shade, bright sunny days like this. If you don't have clouds, you gotta find what is essentially clouds, and it'll be a high bank that creates shade. It'll be a tree leaning over the river. All these fish are going to congregate in these spots. So the first one that I have set up is, like I said, we're doing the 4-weight. We have our floating tip here. This is the 7.5-foot tip. And I got the Commando Smooth. I have the 200 grain on our 4-weight. That's what I like. There's a variance between, everyone's casting style can vary basically 25 grains either side. It's up to you. That's dialing that in. A couple of our guys like lighter stuff, a couple of our guys like heavier stuff. There's no right or wrong answer to that. It's whatever suits you the best. So I'll walk into a hole with this rod. Like I said, this is just a big foam dry fly. It's not a design skater, but it'll skate just fine. And throwing out for sea runs, it's a blast. They'll come up and eat it. And like I said, then I'm gonna follow it up. This is the Smooth. So this is a great line also too for trout, because if you're gonna, you can throw a sing tip with this also. And if you do, for casting and stripping fish that are wanting that fly moving a whole bunch, I highly recommend the Smooth, because you can strip that right back into your guides really easy. And then if you want to dump it out and make a cast, it's very easy to do and it's very clean. This rod here, same rod. This is with our regular Commando head with a mono running line. This will give you a little more distance on your cast. When you're fishing our bigger rods, that makes a significant difference. Trout fishing wise, it's not a huge difference. So if you got fish that want to be stripped, lean towards the Smooth. If you're doing basically nothing but swinging, this is the mono Commando head is an awesome setup, and you'll get a few more feet in your cast. And as you get to the bigger rods, you get more and more distance between mono and your Smooth lines. And that's why we build Smooth the 300 and then transition everybody into mono after that, because as you get into the bigger rods, it's a substantial increase. So also the versatility. I'm lucky enough, I have 2 rods rigged up right now. If I don't, I can literally pull the tip off of this one, put the floating tip on, or vice versa, and have one rod do 2 different setups within a few minutes of rigging. Super easy. And guys, also, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to have a whole bunch of rods. And if you don't, and you get into a place where you're fishing dry flies, if you have an extra spool set up with a weight forward floating line, these rods will cast a weight forward floating line awesome too. It's a little longer rod, so in these bigger rivers and some of the stuff around here and in Montana, it gives you a little more leverage with it. You can also run a nymph line with it and nymph fish them. And you're not pigeonholed into by buying this single hand swing rod. It's literally will do everything that you want it to do, and it's definitely worth taking a look. So we're just talking about rigging, now we're gonna apply it. Come into a hole, first thing we see, nice shady bank on the far side. Doesn't matter what, if we're looking for steelhead, sea run, cutthroat, rainbows, that's where they're gonna be. As I said, I have a floating tip, floating head with a little dry fly that's a foamy that we'll use as a skater. Always, if you want a chance to catch a fish on a dry fly, run in a hole like this first with a skater and then follow it up with your sing tip or what you would normally fish, because whether it's sea runs or steelhead, there are fish that will eat dry flies. But you find these shady spots that have some depth, that's where the fish are gonna be at. So we're gonna start, again, Commando Smooth, 200 grain, full integrated line with our floating Commando tip, 7.5 foot, and just a little generic dry fly. And you're just gonna work your side of the shore. Don't have to cast to the other side. Start anywhere on the seam here, work it this way, and you're swinging a fly. Just let it work, just like you were fishing a sing tip, but instead you're watching it, and you gotta be slower. When a fish comes up, you can't be quick on the draw or you'll miss it. Basically, you're gonna tight line it. I mean, if you run a sink tip, you're comfortable with that, do the same thing. There's guys that'll twitch steelhead stuff. There are guys that won't move their fly. It's all a personal preference. The current is V-waking your fly. So if you got aggressive fish that want to see more, then you can pop your fly. This is a pretty small creek. I'm not gonna worry about moving my fly nearly as much as if I was in bigger water and I was really trying to draw a fish from a larger distance. These fish, I'm covering bank to bank right now, so they're gonna see it. If they want it, that's their choice. So again, first run through the hole, find your shade, find your deeper spots. This hole is not super deep. This is probably maybe 3 or 4 feet on the far side, but this big pocket of shade out here is gonna lure fish into it. And they're gonna go all the way in the shade stuff. And that fish gave itself away. He literally was rising in this calm water as I made the cast out there. And I just knew where he was and I worked my fly to him. Just a smaller fish, little cutthroat, but fun action, and you get to learn from these guys, and they'll make you a better fisherman all the way around. But they're beautiful little fish.